All right, Steeler fans, it's time to go behind enemy lines. Week 16, Steelers on a short week. They just experienced a Monday night win. Now they got to get on the road and head to Motown to play the Detroit Lions. Ford Field, very familiar for the Steelers faithful, Super Bowl 40. To talk about the Lions, we bring in half of the Bleachers to Speakers crew. B. Foster, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm all right. I was doing a little bit better last year, but we're still here. We're still alive, I guess.
Well, I think that's my first general question. As I was getting ready for this segment, I was looking at the Lions, and man, they're tough. They're a tough nut to crack. They've had a lot of injuries, and that's really, really important and really key. But they've just been kind of this roller coaster, like they just can't seem to find any consistency. Sounds very much like the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. What is your take on the Lions at this juncture? They're 8-6, same record as Pittsburgh. They're still vying for a playoff spot. They're still in the conversation for the NFC North if things go their way. What's your take on the season so far?
It's just been tough for us to string a number of wins together. One thing that we know is that we don't lose two in a row. It's been years since we've actually lost two in a row, but this year it just seems like had our back against the wall. We had a really tough, especially road schedule this year. So it's just been difficult for us to get a consistent, steady, road of success.
What's been the most disappointing part of this season? Because I feel like you could go in a bunch of different avenues. I see one thing as an outsider, but I want to know what your take. What has been the most disappointing aspect of this 2025 season for Lions?
Pretty much it's just been the secondary and trying to keep everybody healthy at the same time. We had DJ Reed, the guy that we went out and in free agency and grabbed, was out for a good 5-6 games of the year. And right now we have three of our top four secondary members: Brian Branch, Terrion Arnold, and Kirby Joseph are all out right now. Branch and Arnold are out for the year, and Joseph, we're just hoping to maybe get back. If we lose this game, we might as well just shut him down. But that's a guy that we spent a bunch of money on and was a Pro Bowler last year. So we just haven't had a full group of secondary members all year long.
And that's definitely reflective in when you look at the points, especially in the last four games, the points surrendered. You're talking 27 points to the Giants, 31 points to the Packers, 30 points to the Cowboys, and then obviously 41 by the Rams last week. They are giving up a lot of points, which is not really what you think of when you think about a Dan Campbell-led football team. So let's start on the defensive side, since we're on this side anyways. Is the weakness to just throw the ball? Or to pick on that secondary that you mentioned, which does have two former Steelers now in the mix, and Arthur Millette and DeMonte KZ. But what would be the approach if you're the Steelers going into this game against Detroit? How would you approach that defense?
Yeah, I mean, the weak spot is definitely our secondary, but surprisingly, the Rams were able to run pretty good on us. That's one thing that what has always been our bread and butter. Even last year was controlling the line of scrimmage and keeping the team from running the ball. But the Rams kind of had their way in all fronts, and obviously when you can't stop the run, it opens you up for play action opportunities. So I would say any way that makes sense for you, I will give it a shot.
Now, what's your take? Because this is always curious because the Steelers played the NFC North this year, so I was having this conversation with David Stefano of the Vikings, with a Green Bay Packers podcaster, obviously with one of the Pays crew for the Bears. What's your relationship, I guess, if you want to put it that way, with Aaron Rodgers? Because clearly, him in the Packers, he's going to be going to Detroit. Very familiar with that setting. What do you think of when you think about Aaron Rodgers coming back to play the Lions again?
Yeah, he's definitely not the most popular guy around here. We sent him packing pretty nicely on his way out of town from Green Bay, and unfortunately, if Kirby Joseph can make a go at it, I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to do so. But yeah, overall, he's obviously had his way with us, and we would like nothing more than to, once again send them packing with a loss.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that you said they haven't lost 2 games in a row in a very long time, that doesn't bode well for the Steelers. Now, the defense might be struggling, but let's go to the offensive side of the ball. There are injuries on that side as well. It does look like Amon-Ra St. Brown is healthy after his, I guess it was an ankle injury, but you lost Sam Laporta for the year, and that's a big blow because he's a very dynamic player. But you still have Jahmyr Gibbs, you still have James Williams. What is the Lions offense doing? And I really want to get your take on what the difference has been since Dan Campbell took over play calling duties. And that was, what was it, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, almost a little over a month. What have you noticed the most about Dan Campbell calling the plays?
The biggest difference that I can see is Jamison Williams getting the ball a lot more. John Morton, the brand new offensive coordinator, came out and essentially said that he failed him as a coach. I didn't really know what that meant. It was like, does he just not have access to these plays? But miraculously, the minute that Dan Campbell took over, Jamison Williams was getting 9 to 10 targets a game and completing a vast majority of them.
So let's talk about the offense now. If you're the Steelers and you're that defense and you're trying to find a way to keep the Lions off the scoreboard, it's not easy. You got a lot of weapons over there. What are you trying to do? I think that it's kind of one of those, you don't stop it, you hope to slow it down. If that's the goal for the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 16, how do you try and slow down this Lions offense?
You gotta try to keep Jared Goff under duress. He's had an amazing year, and we top out at the apex of most of the categories offensively. But if you can get Jared Goff shuffling his feet and kind of getting anxious back there, you have a chance at stopping him. But I mean, sometimes I forget that, crazy enough, that Sam Laporta is out for the season, because we really haven't. I mean, we had moments where it was like, man, I really wish we had him. But other than that, I mean, we have so many guys. I think Isaac Tesla has kind of taken over and
Mhm.
been more of a factor. So you there's still so many weapons that you have to account for, that it's hard to pinpoint, what direction to go in.
Everyone talks about Dan Campbell's aggressive nature, especially on the offensive side of the football, and he's not afraid to go for it on fourth downs. And I'm not talking about fourth and short, I'm talking about fourth and medium. Has
Right.
that still been the case, or has he kind of calmed down a little bit in terms of how aggressive he is at all times? What is your take on that?
I think it's pretty much the same. I think that we've grown so accustomed to it that we don't even bat an eye when it happens. So, if it's been more or less, I think it's just pretty much instilled in our brains that you're gonna see a couple plays a game where it's like the average team would not take that chance, but that's just kind of what we do.
It seems like it. So I do want to get your take on the Steelers. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, again, 8-6 as well. From just an outsider's perspective, what's your take on the team this year and in this upcoming matchup?
I mean, it's a team that definitely decided to go all in. They're, I think, the second oldest team in the
Mhm.
NFL, and they've got some good players, but I really feel like a lot of them are kind of long in the tooth. And I mean, they're veterans. They know how to win. They have a veteran coach, and I think they're also kind of reaping the benefits of a weaker division. I think that going into the season, or going into the last couple seasons, we thought, the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, you got a lot of top-notch teams, but yeah, they've managed to, stay atop without having, either side of the ball. It doesn't really jump at you statistically.
No, it doesn't. And you're right. Statistically, they're not really doing any one thing particularly well. And so that's a very astute observation. I want to ask you a question I ask a lot of people that I've on that follow NFC teams. The Steelers, you might know those household names. When you bring up Aiden Hutchinson, like everyone knows Aiden Hutchinson. People know Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff, et cetera, et cetera. Give me a player on offense first, then we're going to go to the defensive side of the football. Give me a player on offense that Steeler fans might not know, but by the time the game rolls around or maybe the game is over, you're probably going to know this guy's name. Who would be one of those types of players for the Lions on offense?
Um, I mean, most of our guys are pretty notable, but maybe you're not yet in tune with Isaac Tesla, who is a player that we traded up for. I think into the third round to go and grab. He played 1 year at Arkansas and previously played at Hillsdale in Michigan. But he's a player that has, up until recently, all of his catches have been touchdowns. He's got 3 or 4 touchdowns this year, and he probably going into the prior to this past week, probably only had 5, 6 catches, but he's a tall, athletic guy with good body control. Pretty speedy guy, and he, like I said, he's stepped up in recently just because Sam Laporte has been out. So even though he's not a tight end, he kind of fits that same physical mold because he is a pretty big receiver.
All right, so let's go to the defensive side of the ball now. A player that maybe the Steeler fans don't know too well, but they might by the end of the game. What do you got?
Let's see. Maybe man, there's so many good ones. A guy that has kind of jumped out to me recently is a guy by the name of Roy Lopez, who's an interior defensive lineman who we kind of brought in to be a bit of a pass rush threat. I don't think a lot of people really, his name didn't really jump out at us, but he's been pretty instrumental and pivotal to us creating some pressure up the middle. Aleem McNeil was injured for the first half of the year, and DJ Reader is kind of having an off year, and Tyleek Williams is only a rookie, but yeah, Lopez has came in and has been a pretty big factor, along with some of the other talented defensive linemen we have, such as Aiden Hutchinson and also Muhammad. I cannot think of his first name, but he's another guy that's been pretty good off the edge for us.
All right. So let's take a look at the line. I'm not expecting you to give me a pick. It's way too early in the week. Haven't seen injury reports yet, right. But the line opened at the Lions giving 6.5 points, and it's moved to 7. So they're giving the Steelers a full 7 points and a total of 49.5. And that's the opening line. It's moved to 51.5 by some sports books. This is fascinating to me, and I'm just curious what you think of this spread, maybe some gut reaction or gut thought feeling about how this game's going to play out. What's your expectations for this 4:25 Eastern time kickoff?
I mean, I understand it in a sense, just because although we are kind of, limping into this game and, coming off a loss, but we are pretty strong at home, and just placing the odds as far as us winning is us not losing 2 games in a row. And, I say that I've been saying that all year, and I've been scaring myself into thinking that I might be jinxing it. But I think it sets up for us to have a good offensive performance per usual, and to, just exploit some of the, the weaknesses that the Steelers do have.
Now, I haven't looked yet because I haven't. Seriously, the Steelers just played on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, you guys played yesterday. It's crazy.
So yeah, so it's I have not even looked at the Lions yet. Are you guys turning the ball over at any clip, or are you guys protecting the football? Because that's the Steelers' MO. If they get the ball, it's game on. If they don't do well. What are the Lions looking like in that regard?
No, we take care of the ball pretty good. I feel like we had a game recently where we might have had some issues, but Goff's, a pretty good game manager. He doesn't throw the ball away, and we protect him relatively well. So it's nothing that Pittsburgh should bank on. But I'm very iffy about the rest of this season right now. So anything can happen.
Well, the Steelers defense is banged up as well. TJ Watt's probably not expected to play, dealing with that collapsed lung and coming off of that. Nick Herbig suffered a hamstring injury last in the game on Monday night. So that's going to hamper their pass rush there. So if you're thinking about that, you might not have to worry about it too much, but nothing official as of this being reported. So I want to give you, B. Foster, the opportunity to plug what you guys are doing at Bleachers to Speakers, as well as social media handles or anything like that. I'll let you do that now.
Yeah, so we do a show every Wednesday. So that's actually tomorrow, and I think I'm hosting it. But it's called "Who Will Be King," and that's an NFC North show where the Bears representative, me and my co-host June, on the Lions side of things, and then Dave Stefano handles the Vikings side of things. We're still looking for a Packers guy after all this time, but yeah, that's every Wednesday. You can catch us there, and then me and June do a pregame show normally on Saturday mornings, and then we do a postgame on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, or whenever
Yeah.
the game goes down. So that's pretty much what we do on the Detroit Lions side of things. Oh,
Well,
as
yeah,
far
go
as
ahead. Sorry.
social media, we do have a Bleachers to Speakers Twitter, but if you want to check out my Twitter, it's MBR Foster Child.
I really appreciate your time and short notice, and I appreciate your insight on the Detroit Lions. It's going to be a fun game. I hope it's entertaining. Clearly, I hope the Steelers win, and you feel the opposite. That's the way it should be. That's why we're fans of our respective teams.
That's right.
Good luck in the game. Enjoy it, man. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.